are we really dealing with? Like Kevin always says, let's deal with what is.
System is rigged. So it works as follows. I call it the catastrophic quartet. In the 70s, 10% of the adult population was overweight or obese. Now it's 74%.
We went from 10 to 74%.
We went from 0 practically in the 50s. That's why type 2 diabetes used to be called adult onset diabetes.
Yeah.
Now it's type 2 because kids are getting it. By the time I was 21 years old, rates of obesity and being overweight in adults had tripled. And now it's 74% from 10.
Hello, Heal Squad. Welcome back. We have some great episodes lined up for you this week, starting with today's episode. But first, our quote of the day: transformation isn't a future event. It's a present day activity. And that is from my friend and our guest today, Jillian Michaels. Heal Squad, get ready for an eye-opening episode today because we are deep diving into the health crisis that America is facing. And trust me, you don't want to miss this. We are joined by the unstoppable Jillian Michaels, world-renowned fitness expert, best-selling author, health advocate, and the host of the podcast Keeping It Real. Jillian's here to keep it real and shed light on the broken food industry and the shocking truth behind America's obesity epidemic and how big corporations, shockingly or not shockingly, are putting profits over our well-being. And she's going to get into specifics because I know a lot of us don't know exactly what's really going on. We hear things, but she really knows things. She's going to share her experience at a recent roundtable that was very inspiring to me by Senator Ron Johnson, and why she's on a mission to spark real bipartisan conversations about health. This conversation is going to be very powerful, so stick around. So, Jillian, it's been a minute.
I know. How are you?
I'm great. It's so great to see you. You look amazing as always.
Oh my gosh, so do you. And the baby is adorable. Kevin is handsome as ever.
Oh yeah, Kevin's here.
You've been to hell and back and still look exactly the same. I don't know how you do it. I don't know if your audience knows this. I've definitely mentioned it before. But anybody listening, this woman saved my life, saved my entire career, and put yourself at risk to do it. When NBC was pulling all their evil, nefarious crap. And the guy who was responsible for it has subsequently been dismissed from the network. But nevertheless, he was running the network. And you took him on and your own boss when they were trying to spread these malicious lies, because the Biggest Loser brand and the Jillian Michaels brand were always head to head. So the more they could vilify me and make me Darth Vader, it was great for TV, but killed my brand and helped theirs. And I am forever in your debt. You are, for anybody who questions, you are the real deal. You are an absolutely wonderful human being. And I will never forget what you did for me. My life would have taken a very different trajectory, because you know that it's like the lie gets all the way around the world while the truth is just putting on its pants. And there's no way. I mean, I've been subject to those kinds of lies, and people believe them.
I know.
They believe them.
It's really hard.
And you stopped it at your own detriment, and I am forever in your debt.
You're so sweet. Thank you. You're making me cry, because I remember at that time I was going through hell myself.
I know.
With the situation I was in, and I was like begging for help. I was like, somebody help me. What's happening? Why are these people so crazy?
I don't know. They were
and
evil.
This industry is really, really challenging, and I think people are really starting to see just how crazy it is.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a Greek girl from Medford who just had dreams to be here, and I worked hard, I cared, I did the right thing, I was honest, and then I just would step on a freaking rake every time I would go somewhere. I'm like, why are you guys so cruel? Unnecessarily cruel. Why?
That's a big thing too, Jillian. Like, a lot of it is just unnecessary. Do you know what I mean? I kind of can follow the money a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is just
malicious.
Yeah, He had a front row seat, and he couldn't do much.
That guy that went after me was running the network, and he was taken down by a host of others who he was viciously cruel to. And there was like racism and sexism and homophobia. And I didn't even come forward. I wasn't even a part of it. I just kind of moved on and felt like, you know, let's not look backwards. We don't need to get into a lawsuit with a huge network. I'm just going to continue my life. Kind of like you did. It's like, all right, let's just look.
Get away. That's the win.
Yeah, like let's move towards the light, Carol Ann. You know what I mean? But there were a bunch of people that had just been too damaged that ended up taking that guy down and the entire insane regime that was associated with him. But he would have, in fact, destroyed my career. And for you cut this or leave it, but the story was that they called Extra, where you were working, and said that I had given the contestants illegal drugs and somebody went to the hospital. And I'll never forget it. You called me and you were going to a movie. I think I was just coming out of a movie. It was like a Wednesday night. And you're like, Jillian, listen, I'm trying to save your life right now. What's going on? Is anyone in the hospital? I'm trying to hold the story. You had gotten in a fight with the woman who ran Extra to hold the story. You're like, someone called and they keep saying no comment. And I was like, I don't even know anything about this. No one's gone to the hospital. I haven't given anybody anything. This is insane. And you managed to corner, and they kept telling you no comment.
Yeah, how can you run a story when there's nothing, no facts, no nothing. It's just gossip and no comment coming from people.
No comment. And you cornered the head of the network at home on his home phone when people had home phones. Because this was like 2010. And you said, like, listen, we can't run the story unless there's proof. Is anybody in the hospital? Do you have any evidence that she gave anything illegal substance? And he acted like, what? This is crazy. Of course not. And you were able to kill the story. And had that story run, you know that it doesn't matter.
The truth doesn't matter.
It
Now,
never
more than
matters.
ever, it doesn't matter. But back then...
Oh, forget it.
when
Everybody would
it's-
have believed it.
yeah.
They still do. Jillian Michaels says pregnancy ruins a body. Never said it. It never came out of my mouth. I never said it. It's insane the way these things manage to become a part of pop culture and people believe it.
I know.
And I have no idea what that would have done to morality clauses in my contracts. It would have been catastrophic. And you put yourself on the line to save my ass. You had zero obligation to do it. And it's very rare to see people do that kind of thing, let alone a woman for another woman. And you are that woman. And I always want everyone to know what a fucking hero you are.
Thank you.
I'm in your debt.
Well, I like to help when I can, and I also don't like to see injustice. If you look at my astrology chart, guys, my astrology chart says justice and fairness. Those are like my biggest things.
Yeah.
And so I don't like to see people bully. I don't like to see people lie and try to get away with it, especially in entertainment news, because in entertainment news, you know, people put their integrity sometimes aside because it's just entertainment, but it's not. It's your life.
Yeah, it's someone's life.
And so I was like, if this is true, that's one thing. But if it's not true, then we can't run this. And I was having a really hard time at the time, but I pleaded with my boss at the time from a woman's perspective. I said, listen, this is a woman who worked really, really hard for her career and for her family. And if this isn't true, we can't run this. This is completely insane. And so it wasn't just me. It was her as well who had the final power to kill it. And she definitely didn't do it because she liked me. That's for sure.
You had to lobby on my behalf.
Well, I spent the whole movie. So I was going into this movie theater with Kevin, and I was like, Kevin, I need to put my Batman cape on, and we need to do something here. And so Kevin went into the movie, and I was like, I'll join you after. But he ended up coming out, and that's right when I finished. It was probably like 2 hours of calls going back and forth and gathering everything. But
yeah,
but I'm so happy that I was able to do it. And I think, you know, I always say, like, I'm always surprised when people have the power to change someone's life. No, I was just doing the right thing. It wasn't like I was thinking, oh my God, I'm going to save her life or whatever. I just knew I had to fix this, and I'm a fixer. But there are so many times in life when someone could pick up the phone and fix something for someone or make their life, you know, make a quick call. Like I had a guest in here who is always giving to everybody. And she had given to us too. And she doesn't know how to do her own press, even though she's like a publicist. She was having such a hard time. I said, come in the kitchen. And literally I started going through all of my Rolodex in my brain, guys, because we don't have real Rolodexes anymore, but all my contacts. And it's like, okay, I'm going to get you here. I'm going to get you there. I'm going to get you here. I'm going to get you there. And I put together an entire press tour for her with all the top people in a matter of 30 minutes. Now, what's 30 minutes for me to be able to do that for somebody who also had extended their hand to me years ago? we have the power to do stuff, but so many people are like either afraid to give, afraid to help.
They don't want to call in the favors.
Yeah.
Right? Because you only get so many.
Yeah.
I find that my generation of female, not as bad as the boomers generation, but it's like gunslingers. There's only room in this town for one of us, and it's going to be me. So if you go down, great. I don't want any crossover. So that's one less competitor I have in the space. That's a definite issue. And I think good has to decide when it wants to put on its pants.
Yeah.
And get out of bed, do the job, whereas bad works 24/7. It really does. It's an ongoing, and the good guy is like, God damn it, there's a dog in the street and I'm late to an interview or whatever it might be. I got the kids in the car, like there's rush hour traffic, and you gotta pull over, chase the dog through the friggin', you're an hour late. What do you do with the dog that's in your car? Like, it's that kind of, you really have to, it's a sacrifice. Yeah. You have to decide, like, all right, I'm going to throw all my shit off today, or put myself out on a limb with my boss who already has targeted me, or call in this favor, or the network has an agenda. The network called your show. You knew that. You're like, it's an inside thing.
That was just my spidey sense. I didn't know. I don't think I knew. It's hard for me to remember officially, but I remember having an initial call with our mutual lawyer, because Kevin was your lawyer, right? Yeah. And I was like, I'm pretty psychic. I can have good psychic feelings. And I was like, oh, I think I know what's happening here. Just the way he laid it out, I could tell really fast what was going on. And so, yeah.
And then they said no comment. They kept saying no comment.
Yeah. But that was that.
Sorry, off-piste, but I love you. I just need people to know who you like, who you really, really are. Because you can see people and they seem so lovely, and they're not at all. And I won't name names. You know what I mean? But it's like, the nicer they are, the shittier
sometimes
that person usually is. And you guys are everything you present as, and I experienced it firsthand.
Thank you. Well, I'm grateful that we were able to do that, and
I'm
grateful for the years that we've known each other. Like I started interviewing you back, I think, at the beginning of Biggest Loser.
That's right.
And I've been at your house with your kids interviewing you, and we've gone through so many years. And I have to say, I recently came across that roundtable. Now, I didn't know much about it, just saw it because health stuff is coming up in my feed all the time, and I saw you be a part of it, and you were really, really educated on the food crisis and the health crisis in America. And that's what we talk about here every single day is how do we get better? How do we get healthier? How do we do things better? Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to have Jillian come back on and share with us what really is going on out there. And I know that there's politics involved, unfortunately, as well. But really, for me, the most important thing, and I think what should be the most important thing, is what are we really dealing with? Like Kevin always says, let's deal with what is. Yeah. Right? We have grown up taught to achieve, taught to succeed, taught to get good grades, taught to get big jobs, make a lot of money. Health? Crickets.
I know.
And that's where we're at. Yeah. And we have parents who some people don't know any better. They just don't know any better because they're marketed to. Yeah. And then their friends are all doing it. So they don't know. I was blessed to have parents who came from a village, who grew garden vegetables, no matter how poor we were. So I was privileged enough to have that family that knew. And my dad was type 1 diabetic. So we also couldn't have stuff in the house. So I'm passing that on to my daughter. But my dearest friend has a son, and he's really an athletic, amazingly strong kid. And we're at breakfast, and he's like, do you want the chocolate milk, the chocolate pancakes, the everything? And I'm like, okay, this can be like here or there. I go, but you're giving him vegetables too, right? He had no idea. And genuinely, just he's like a single dad. He really just didn't know. So for me, I would love for us to educate everybody who doesn't know because it's innocent. I always say, once you know better, you can do better, just like Maya Angelou taught us.
Exactly.
So know better, get better, do better. I want to know better today. What are we dealing with? What is?
How deep down this rabbit hole do you want to go?
I mean, we can go as deep as you want, but I feel like we can start with food, right?
Well, all right. So first of all, I strongly recommend everybody check out the work of Callie Means.
Who is Callie
So
Means?
Callie, you must have him on.
Oh, wait. Is that not a doctor?
Nope. His sister is a Stanford-trained physician, head and neck surgeon who defected along with her brother, and I'll explain that in a moment, from traditional medicine to move into an upstreamist approach of trying to root out what is causing chronic disease instead of playing whack-a-mole in triage, treating people who've already become sick.
Was she the Stanford doctor that was a part of that roundtable?
Yes.
So she's coming on the show as well.
She's fantastic.
When she went on to her like tirade of Stanford never taught me, Stanford never taught me, Stanford never taught me, Stanford, I was like, oh my God, people need to hear this.
Yeah.
This is a Stanford trained doctor who is basically
Top of her
blowing
class,
the
Maria.
whistle. Okay, top of her class, blowing
Number
the
one.
whistle on what is. And I didn't know anything about Senator Johnson, was it?
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about him. I had no idea what this whole thing was, but I saw Food Babe, I saw you, and I saw her. And I was like, get me all of these people. We need to hear everything.
Yeah. So Callie is her brother. Callie went to Harvard Business School, and Callie was a lobbyist who worked for Big Food and Big Pharma.
Can you explain what a lobbyist does?
Okay, we should probably start sort of from the beginning. The issue is that the system is rigged, and it's rigged by simply raw economic incentives. So it works as follows. I call it the catastrophic quartet of big farming. So essentially what happens is we've got a very dysfunctional package of agriculture legislation that was started during the Great Depression, the Farm Bill, which was meant to support mom and pop farmers. The long and the short of it is that monster corporations like Cargill and Monsanto have co-opted this legislation, right? And they do this through lobbying efforts. So it's illegal in I think every other country of the developed world for big corporations to influence politicians or donate to their campaigns or lobby for them to change legislation, but not here. And it is a fundamental problem. In 2010, legislation went through the Supreme Court called Citizens United. It's not quite this simple, but this is a big piece. So what ends up happening is these huge corporations are able to form super PACs, political action committees. And I think you and I are only allowed to contribute like a few $1,000s. These guys are able to contribute tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. If you want to know actually what the candidate you're voting for is going to do, look at who's funding their campaign. Period. End of story. So
Wait, let's just hear that for 1 second, because that just nailed me like a second later. If you really want to know what your candidate of choice is going to do, look at who's funding them.
exactly.
Why don't we ever think about it like that? Because they can say so much, as we
Irrelevant.
say, talk is cheap, irrelevant. Who's paying for them?
I'll give you an example. And I just had Anna Kasparian on. I don't know if you're familiar with her. She's fantastic. She's a political commentator. She's on a show on YouTube called Young Turks. And
I've heard of them.
she's fantastic, Maria. You have to talk to her. So she was laying out how an example would be this billionaire Reid Hoffman wants to get this woman, I believe her name is Lena Khan, fired. Lena Khan is breaking up monopolies. We want that. And she gave the example of how her only cable provider is Spectrum. They have a monopoly. They raise her bills every year. There's nothing she could do because there's no alternative. And he's one of Kamala Harris's top campaign contributors. And he has actually come out and said, I want this woman, I believe Lena Khan, fired. Okay, so I don't care how much you like Kamala. I don't care how much you like Trump. Look at who's funding them. when Tim Walz is standing with Alex Soros and taking photos side by side, take a deep dive into what the Soros family has done historically, and you will know what they are going to do in office. It's that simple. You don't need to listen to them in their debates. This is why campaign promises almost never happen, because they say things to get elected.
Yeah.
But whoever's footing the bill is like, okay, you owe me that favor. Pay up.
That's a great point.
The Koch brothers, Larry Fink.
That also goes to health, though. You got to follow the money.
It's exactly my point.
Follow the money.
Follow the money. So these big corporations co-opted the Farm Bill. And what it ended up doing was utilizing billions of taxpayer dollars to subsidize genetically engineered crops that are high yield, no nutrition whatsoever, that they can patent for money, like corn.
Meaning the government, when they're subsidizing, the government's paying
our money. They're taking our tax dollars
and paying for that.
Paying for them to produce all of these crappy, empty monoculture crops. So these are genetically engineered. They're not even genetically modified. So genetically modified is like, I took a red rose and I took a white rose and I made a pink rose. That makes sense. Like, this is a whole different beast. This is a good example, and this is not an accurate one when we're talking about these particular crops, but would be, I took a jellyfish gene and I put it in a tomato. That's genetically engineered. It's something that would never happen in nature.
Yeah.
These crops would never happen in nature.
They would never cross-pollinate.
No. So what they've created, these seeds, they can patent them because they're not naturally occurring, and they're designed to tolerate an obscene amount of chemicals. Pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, chemical fertilizers, and we're seeing this in our environment. So when you see dead zones in the ocean from space,
what's a dead zone?
Girl, it's so deep how this runs. I'm sorry I don't want to keep taking you off piece, but for example, a dead zone is where there's no life in the ocean.
And you can see it?
From space. You can see the dead zone. It comes off the river. So what happens is these chemical fertilizers run off, get in the river. The river spits it out into the ocean. It makes the plankton, I believe it is, overgrow. It suffocates all of the fish. Ted Danson actually gave a really great testimony on this to the Senate many years ago. And I was more familiar with it than I am right now. So forgive me if I'm butchering it. But the only thing that will then grow for miles and miles and miles are jellyfish. And they overgrow.
So you can see these dead zones.
From space. They're so vast.
And by the
so
way,
big.
like, I'm going to keep making this so simple for people. So the lobbyists are paid to go lobby on behalf
of big food, big farming, big insurance, and big pharma.
So they're paying so that these politicians can
are
look the other way, change
so
legislation.
Not even looking the other way. They are effectuating. They're also co-opting the research. And nobody can speak to this better than Callie, which is why you need to have him on. But essentially now you've got this glut of calories and they overproduce. So cheap, no nutrients whatsoever. The soil is totally depleted. They're saturated in poison. And I'll give you another good one. Courtney Swan, who was there with us at the Capitol, was talking about just one of these pesticides makes an insect's guts literally explode.
Oh, wonderful.
Now,
which is why we're all bloated.
Well, the question becomes, if you're going to, right, connect the dots, she hypothesizes that if this is doing this to insects, is this one of the reasons that we are all struggling with issues like leaky gut?
Yeah.
That you're seeing gut barrier integrity problems in so much of our population. But the issue is that the way research is done, you can't really pinpoint, right? Is it that? Is it all the other crap in the food? Is it the fact that our microbiome is decimated? Is it the fact that
our water?
Right.
Yeah,
how can
you
you drill
start?
down? So anyway, now you've got all these cheap, crappy calories with no nutrition covered in pesticides. Big food jumps into the mix. And I'm like, well, this is amazing. We've got all these cheap calories. This is a boon. Fantastic. They, and then Callie will also speak to this, back in the 80s, big tobacco bought big food, took all the marketing strategies and all the addictive science of flavorings and so on, and made the food that much more addictive, marketed it to children. Like Hawaiian Punch was some sort of alcohol mixer that they then studied and targeted towards kids. And we've seen this explosion. So if you look at the statistics of the 70s, in the 70s, 10% of the adult population was overweight or obese. Now it's 74%.
We went from 10 to 74%.
We went from 0 practically in the 50s. That's why type 2 diabetes used to be called adult onset diabetes.
Yeah.
Now it's type 2 because kids are getting it. Childhood obesity did not exist. By the time I was 21 years old, rates of obesity and being overweight in adults had tripled. And now it's 74% from 10.
I have the chills. Did you know we were at 74% obesity?
Overweight and
I thought
obese.
50% or more, but 74. Wow.
Wow.
74 with overweight and obese.
Okay.
So I haven't even gotten into the statistics with you, but this is how it works, right? So now big food is engineering the environment. So think about how you went from bookstores, this is a perfect example, that didn't allow food or drinks or a library, that are now selling 500
Starbucks.
calorie coffee drinks, right?
Yeah.
They surround you with ubiquitous cues to eat. They buy the narrative, as do the pharmaceutical companies. So you've got monster celebrities selling sugar cereal and soda and all of this crap to the kids. You've got registered dietitians on social media paid off by companies like General Mills to sell you this anti-diet narrative of derail the shame. And I don't mean diet like starve yourself skinny. I mean, don't worry about the junk food. There's room for all of this in a healthy lifestyle. Let's derail the shame. Or they'll pay off civil rights groups like the NAACP or the Hispanic Freedom League because they make these monster donations. So when you want to remove soda from SNAPs, the food stamp program, they'll label you as a racist. Go ahead and look at it. Look at what Bloomberg had happened to him with the soda tax back in 2013.
Wow.
It is strategic. It's deliberate. It's by design. And then Big Pharma is like, oh, this is fantastic. Let's pick them up on the back end. So they get you coming, they get you going. And now they've created this perfect storm where they're selling you the narrative that obesity is a brain disease. Well, where was this brain disease in 1970? What happened? A quantum leap in genetics? Or is it the overwhelming positive correlation with the explosion of ultra-processed foods in conjunction with the 10,000 chemicals you've dumped into our food supply that didn't exist before, that the FDA is not regulating due to a loophole, which is staggering, that happen to be illegal in pretty much every country of the developed world outside of like I've heard 400, and then somebody the other day said up to 600 of those chemicals. And I'm saying somebody within my little coterie, if you will, who was at the Capitol, and we're kind of this back and forth. And then you've got big insurance. And if you want to know true evil, bring Brigham Bueller on here to talk to you about big insurance. And they make big pharma and big food look like a puppy dog.
What?
Compared to a Tyrannosaurus Rex. He can get into quite how evil it is, but the other part that's
Hold on. We're going to take a break. I need
Yeah.
a shopping break, I think. This is so depressing. But you laid it out so well, and I'm like, oh my God. I didn't know anything was worse than big pharma. Now it's like big insurance.
Much worse.
Let's take
Much worse.
A very necessary mental health shopping break, friends. Macy's, our biggest supporter here, is going to help us through this depressive moment in our fall refresh, because it's fall, guys, and we need a fall refresh. So it's the perfect time. Macy's is having their lowest prices of the season event, whether it's swapping out your comforter for something extra plush, adding some crisp new towels. Nothing better than fresh towels, by the way. Nothing better than getting rid of the cheap, rough towels that have been just over cleaned. Priscilla, it looks like you have rough ass towels that are now your scrub, right? They become your scrub.
I know, it's so depressing.
Literally, guys,
I could use some Macy's towels for sure.
It's the best holiday gift you could buy someone, because everyone's too cheap to buy themselves new towels, I feel like, and it's something you don't even think about. So buy yourself some towels.
Now you know what to get me for Christmas.
I do, actually. Macy's has everything you need to make your space feel warm and inviting. Don't miss out. The sale runs from October 18th through the 27th. Shop online at Macys.com or stop by your local store and snag these deals while they're there. Of course, you can check my favorites on my wish list in the description below. Friends, I'm telling you, get your holiday shopping done right now. Like, start buying some stuff right now, put it in the closet, and get ahead and use this sale. Also, great hair day can change your mood. Even if I'm in a rush and I know I'm going to be leaving the house, I want to make sure my hair looks great, because I always say hair is your woman's best accessory. So your hair has to look great to feel great, I feel like. So if you've been a Heal Squad listener for a long time, you know that I love Ouai's hair oil. I love their leave-in conditioner. I used the hair oil this morning on my wet ends, and it's nice and light and airy, doesn't feel heavy. If you're ready for happier, healthier hair, you can go over to theouai.com, THEOUAI.com. Don't forget to use the Heal Squad code, 15% off, guys. Use Heal Squad at the checkout. Get your 15% off. I already feel a little better. Do you know, whenever I've had to do something really hard, like fire somebody because I hate doing it, we would always go shopping.
I understand.
It really helps. Okay.
Shop therapy.
Shop therapy. So, okay. So
I didn't even set the stage, and I should have, actually.
Do.
I should have established the stakes off the top. Chronic disease is going up at an unprecedented pace. Everything's going up all at the same time. I believe it's now 1 in 36 children are diagnosed with autism. It used to be 1 in 100,000, I think, back in the 60s.
1 in 100,000 to 1 in 36.
Early onset cancer diagnosis, which you understand better than anyone, has gone up 79% in people 18 to 49 in the past 3 decades. I gave you the statistics on obesity. Infertility is at the highest it's been in human history, and it's going up 1% every year. Autoimmune conditions are on the rise. Everything is going up all at the same time, and it's skyrocketing. It's supersonic. So when you think, come on, unfortunately, people find out the hard way. And that's why on the Capitol, I tried to give them things that are tangible that they can relate to. Like, are you the woman who has to jab yourself with a fertility drug every single day? Are you the one that's getting up at the crack of dawn, getting radiation where they found the lump in your breast? Are you the one that they're trying to put on Ozempic and telling you have a brain disease for obesity that didn't exist 50 years ago? All of these things. Are you the one who has a child that was just diagnosed with autism? All of these things are happening to people, and nobody's connecting the dots, and for a good reason. And it is by design, and it's called structural violence. And that is what you are seeing.
What is structural violence? I've never heard of this.
It is the ways in which these corporations, these monster corporations and industries, manipulate the laws to enact harm. Not intentionally. Again, it's raw economic incentive. They know they're creating havoc, but they're putting profit over people, of course, and that is structural violence. People are dying. So I have been a huge advocate my entire career of people taking agency, right? Meaning, like, come on, guys, don't wait for the lifeboats because they're not coming. And we need to walk more, and we got to cut calories. And don't buy the narrative that eating less and moving more doesn't work. It does work. And nobody knows it better than me. The issue is it's exceptionally difficult. And the reason it's exceptionally difficult is because the food, the environment, the narrative, the studies have all been engineered, co-opted, and manipulated, making it extraordinarily difficult for you to do those things. They hijack your biology. The food is addictive. It undermines your satiety. And they exploit your psychology. It's like, oh, did you have a hard day? Did you have to fire someone today?
Have a glass of wine.
Pass any advertisement, any, it's everywhere. Everywhere you go to your kid's soccer game, food truck, go to the bookstore, cafe, anywhere you go, you'll find food. My kids can't go to school without the vending machine. I can't even remove it from their environment. It's omnipresent, this crap. It is addictive. It's designed to undermine your satiety. Our bodies don't know how to process this crap. And that's why it's so, so hard. And even if we were perfect, so even if we managed to be great, and I think I'm pretty great, I've had quite some time to work on this, I'm still not able to remove the plastics, the heavy metals. Whenever I go out to dinner, I'm like, well, God knows what I just ate. How much glyphosate, chemicals, crap.
Yes.
Like, have a salad at a restaurant, think you're doing the great thing, but you're still...
all the oils.
Oh my God, the crappy, cheap seed oils and unless they're buying organic, my spinach salad's covered in poison.
Yeah. It's really hard. And that's the thing that's so scary for me, because I'm trying to heal so many things at once.
I know.
And I'm trying to pitch a perfect game as best I can. And I'll go out to eat. And I just started realizing that that's when this thing, which is called your ileocecal valve or whatever, that large intestine connecting to the small, starts to swell. And okay. I'm like, oh my God, it's from eating out. It's eating the shit with the seed oils.
There's something in the food that's that's
and
irritating.
And then the other part is so for example, TMI, like I don't think, and I love talking about poop, by the way. I think poop is something nobody talks about. We really need to be talking more about it, because we're supposed to technically poop every time we eat. Right?
You know something? I've got a couple of really great gastroenterologists you can have on, but
you should have at least one movement a day.
Would be great, and you should have on, who's fantastic, is Dr. Robin Chutkan. She's incredible.
Okay,
have her on to talk about this.
But
she's
here's
great.
The thing: like after pancreas surgery, and I was taking my enzymes, I was going after every meal, and I was like, "Whoa, I'm efficient!" I was like so proud.
Body's working.
I'm begging now, and I'm realizing that part of it could be that even though I'm eating really good, nutritious, clean, organic food, let's talk about the soil, where the soil is depleted. Even if it's organic, it doesn't mean that the soil has the minerals and stuff that it needs to really give the food what it used to have, right? Like I've had people in here who are like, an apple 10, 20 years ago is, giving you a 10% of the nutrients you were getting, now. So you have to eat so much more to get those minerals. So I'm having to do the gut supports by Dr. Bush. I'm having to, all these things to let my body get assistance to do what it's supposed to do with proper nutrition.
I know. So I want to preface by simply saying this. Taking agency does make a massive difference. Just 7,000 steps a day with a walking pad makes a massive difference. Just switching from the crappy sugar cereal to eggs or yogurt or real food will make a difference. I get it. And part of the reason that myself and this crew of other health advocates and MDs and PhDs are working to create systemic change is to do the job for people that is just too difficult to do on your own. So we can effectuate big change. I just want to make that clear. I don't want people to feel nihilistic and switch off.
Yes.
Okay. That said, again, raw economic incentives would be to continuously farm the soil. So when you continuously farm the soil, you deplete the soil. The plants get their nutrients from the soil. If you don't regenerate the soil, give it a rest, compost it, you put the eggshells from breakfast back in there, put the stem of the carrot you didn't use back in there. This is not profitable. It's not scalable. So they overfarm the soil becomes depleted, there's less nutrients in the plants, the animals get their nutrients from the plants, so even if you're eating the animals, they're eating the nutrient depleted plants, which is why more people are supplementing more than ever.
We also need to understand that the organizations that are meant to protect us aren't necessarily protecting us.
No, it's the exact opposite. And again, it's just the pure raw economic incentives. So for example, the FDA is meant to regulate big food and big pharma, but they're largely funded by big food and big pharma. The American Academy of Pediatrics that's recommending the medicalization of gender dysphoric children is a subsidiary of Big Pharma, and the business for those drugs, be they puberty blockers or cross-sex hormones, is in the billions.
But how do pediatricians who go into this loving kids,
they're heavily
allow that?
Heavily pressurized. So another example would be the Human Rights Campaign. I used to work with the Human Rights Campaign. I would go to their fundraisers. I would make donations when we were fighting for gay marriage. Now they have a score. It's called the HEI score. And I always forget this. I believe it stands for like the Health Equity Index score. And if an institution like Johns Hopkins, for example, doesn't play by the rules, they get a negative HEI score, which means like they're bad to gays, essentially. That's the implication.
What's the human rights?
Well, then it limits their funding, right? Oh, now you've got a bad HEI score. So the game is, oh, you want to pull soda out of snaps? Racist. Oh, hold on. You think Ozempic is not the answer? Fat shamer. Oh, wait a second. You think that we should attack this stuff with lifestyle first? Anti-science. Wait a minute. You're concerned about medicalizing tomboys while their brain is developing? Transphobe. That's the narrative. I didn't finish answering your first question. That's my fault. If you go and you look at, this is a perfect example because most people have seen it. The documentary, the scripted show that Peter Berg did on Netflix about the Sackler family. And it had to do with the opioid crisis and OxyContin. The guy at the FDA that kept saying no to OxyContin, they took that guy into a hotel room for 2 days. Nobody knows what happened. I mean, nobody knows what happened. And he came out of the hotel room and he signed off on OxyContin and he went and he worked for Purdue, making I don't know how much money. It's a revolving door. So it works as follows. You run the FDA, you approve all these things they want you to approve, then you go get a 7-figure job working for that pharmaceutical company or that big food company. And then the part that gets really evil, which I actually just learned on the Capitol from staffers in Congress that I didn't even understand, is that they then go back to the private sector, right? They work on something. What do we want to get done? Oh, we've developed this drug or this whatever. How do we get it approved? I'll go back to the FDA. I'll approve it. Then I'll go back to the private sector. Oh, Maria, it's so deep. And then another example, and this is something that Brigham Bueller can elaborate on, is the way that the insurance companies weaponize the DOJ. So, have you ever noticed that if you want a comprehensive blood panel, or why aren't we able to get the Pronuvo MRI preventative screenings, right, where they do a total body MRI? Or how about the Gallery test, where they can find 99.9% of cancers in your body at a microscopic level? Shouldn't everybody be getting that? If your doctor orders that stuff, the insurance companies start to build a case against them. And then they go to prosecutors at the DOJ and they're like, this white collar crime pays and it's all about asset seizures. And again, I would tell you, when the time comes, you need to talk to Brigham Bueller and he can outline it for you because he's the whistleblower in that space. But they essentially go to these prosecutors at the DOJ who are making like 120 grand a year. They're like, look at these doctors. Look how much they've cost us. Look at all this blood work they're ordering. Look at all these tests they're ordering. We think this is healthcare fraud. And sure, in some cases, it can be.
Wow.
But then what happens is the DOJ goes after these doctors. They intimidate them not to order the blood panel, not to order the predictive tests. And I mean a comprehensive blood panel, right? And then the guy at the DOJ goes and works for the insurance companies, making 7 figures. Same thing, work for the State Department, go work for the military industrial complex. It's a revolving door. The incentives are set up wrong. And you just need to understand it. So yes, obviously, we want you to be outraged. Of course, there's a level of activism that we want to make simple that everybody can take. But having your eyes open allows you to better safeguard yourself and your family, because to be honest, most people think this is insane. It seems like tin hat QAnon. How could this ever happen? But it's a slippery slope, and it is happening, and it is irrefutable.
So I'm gonna leave this right here for part one, because I feel like we've now kind of heard a little bit of what is going on behind the scenes with just the overall kind of cycles of things.
Just the way the system works.
And how the system is working. And then I think in part two, we can talk a little bit about what's in the foods that's harming us. What kind of foods are harming us? Like, people are holding up boxes of Fruit Loops and things like that. And so many things that have been normalized in our lives. And listen, like, I know for me, I really don't have a lot of freedom to have fun, let's say, but I don't think people have to cut everything out completely and whatever. But I do think we have to know what is, and especially for our kids. So I think we'll come back in part two
with some solutions.
Like, how do we now navigate this scary system? And maybe, are we rioting? Are we picketing? What are we doing for this? Because if this is what's going on, why are we not outraged? Why are we not fighting? Because they're poisoning us. And
I have so much to tell you.
Hurry
and get me to part two.
Oh my God.
I'm so ready.
So friends,
get comfortable.
You can join us for part two. We're going to be back with Jillian tomorrow. Don't forget to tune in. In the meantime, stay calm. Be nice people, make good choices, and be present.
This podcast and all related content published or distributed by or on behalf of Maria Menounos or MariaMenounos.com is for informational purposes only and may include information that is general in nature and that is not specific to you. Any information or opinions expressed or contained herein are not intended to serve as or replace medical advice, nor to diagnose, prescribe, or treat any disease, condition, illness, or injury, and you should consult the healthcare professional of your choice regarding all matters concerning your health, including before beginning any exercise, weight loss, or healthcare program. If you have or suspect you may have a healthcare emergency, please contact a qualified healthcare professional for treatment. Any information or opinions provided by a guest expert or host featured within website or on company's podcast are their own, not those of Maria Menounos or the company. Accordingly, Maria Menounos and the company cannot be responsible for any results or consequences or actions you may take based on information or opinions.